Welcome to another Dexter-related video. In this video, what I'm going to be doing is going over the most recent Dexter Resurrection casting news that we got today, which I'm not happy about. And then also, I'm going to be going over all the questions that were asked today and answered on the Dexter Ask Me Anything Reddit thing with Clyde, Phillips, and Scott Reynolds. About 20, a little over 20 questions were actually answered. I asked a question, unfortunately, it wasn't chosen, so I'll be going over all the answers to those questions. But before I do all that, pretty important, if you aren't caught up to the point where I am and rewatching, you're watching Dexter, Dexter New Blood, and Dexter Original Sin. So every episode of Dexter, then I highly recommend that you don't watch this detailed video any further to avoid any potential spoilers, because I will be talking about spoilers for random things in any season of Dexter, and that includes New Blood and Original Sin. But before I do all that, you all know I'm a Dexter fanatic. So if you're new to the channel and finding this channel for the first time, welcome to the channel where we talk about Dexter a lot, especially when there's new episodes. I don't oversaturate it. I don't talk about it every day because then I would be rehashing the same things a lot of the time. But I love talking Dexter. Dexter is one of my favorite shows of all time. It currently isn't my favorite show, but it is number 2 on my all-time favorite TV shows of all time. And I'm combining all the seasons of Dexter, not just Dexter, but not New Blood. All the seasons, even though I don't really like New Blood all that much. But if you want to familiarize yourself with my opinions on Dexter, at the end of this video, with about 20 seconds left to go, in the end screen, I'll put the link to my most recent seasons ranked of Dexter, which will, of course, include Dexter Original Sin, and that will be right there. And then what I'll do is I'll put my most recent ranking of a bunch of Dexter antagonists slash villains, and that'll be, again, about right there. And then I'll put a couple other Dexter videos on this side. Not exactly sure which ones yet. So to familiarize yourself with my opinions on the Dexter universe, make sure you watch those videos and leave me lots of comments and let me know what your thoughts are. And of course, subscribe to the channel. I'd love to have you here. So let's start this off. So there's been a lot of Dexter casting, or Dexter Resurrection casting updates lately. We got Kristen Ritter, the guy from Late Night with the Devil, David, I don't know how to say his last name because I don't say his name often. There's been a lot of random people that have been added to Dexter Resurrection, but today we actually got a cast member from Dexter New Blood that has been confirmed for Dexter Resurrection. Don't know how much he'll be in the show, but David Magadoff, who played Teddy Reed, one of Angela Bishop's deputies, the idiot one that never did anything, the doofus that is a dumbass, he is coming back for Dexter Resurrection. So will he be the one that, spoiler alert, takes Dexter to the hospital? Maybe, or he's the one assigned to watch guard or keep an eye out so Dexter doesn't leave. Not a fan of Teddy, hate that character, but he is coming back. You can check out Dexter Daily, and that has confirmed Teddy being back. And of course, the thing that you're probably coming here for, there was a Dexter Ask Me Anything on Reddit today, where Clyde Phillips and Scott Reynolds answered a lot of questions. Not my question, though. And I'm going to be going over each one of those questions and answers. I'll start with the question that I asked that didn't get chosen. So, JDev TV, as you see, I'll show, will Hannah McKay be resurrected as well? Her dying off screen isn't the best way to write off that character. I understand half of the Dexter fan base hates her, while the other half loves her. Team Hannah McKay here. Please consider bringing her back at some point if it's not in the cards for this opening season, as I could easily see a scenario where she told Harrison to tell Dexter that she's dead. Many reasons why that could happen. That was the end of my question, by the way. I mean, she could just say, tell him that he left me with you without coming back, and, I'm mad at him, but who knows? Hannah probably won't come back. For those of you that hate Hannah McKay, bring her back to kill her off properly at least. Come on, an off-screen death? That's like the worst death for a character. So these questions are in no particular order. I just kind of pulled them in there. It's all the questions that were actually answered. Most of the questions were answered both by Scott Reynolds and Clyde Phillips, who Clyde Phillips is the showrunner. I think Scott Reynolds is now an executive producer, but he's one of the writers as well. I could be wrong on his official title, but first question, what was, in your opinion, the most exciting scene from all the shows combined? From all the twists, kills, seasons, final episodes, what was the most exciting scene to create and watch? Scott Reynolds said, for me, it was the end of season 4. From Dexter capturing Trinity to that thrilling kill of Trinity, Dexter turning the hammer around, the performance between the two, that was a masterclass in writing and everything. The gut punch of the reveal of what happened to Rita, the poetry of what happened to Harrison. And then Clyde Phillips says exactly the same. I think the whole country would say that. Next question. Is Resurrection going to be as cinematic as New Blood, or is it going to have the same style as the original Dexter? Clyde Phillips says Resurrection will be as cinematic as New Blood, due mainly to the fact that we have the same director who is a filmmaker that has had the courage to make a movie for a television screen. And then Scott Williams said, with the added benefit of an amazing ensemble cast in New York City, this will be a thrill ride all the way through. Of course, I believe his name is Marco Siega. He's essentially the main director for Dexter Resurrection, who did most of the episodes of Dexter New Blood as well, which I'm not a fan of. Next question. Is the Dark Passenger I don't know how to say that word. Is it a sentence or is it a separate personality? I've always been interested in this question, and I would love to hear your opinion. Scott Reynolds said, it's Dexter's poetic way of naming his shadow self and the dark urges within him. It's not another personality. It is who he is. And Clyde Phillips said, it's another part of who he is carrying in his psyche. And I'm not actually saying who asked the questions. If some of you actually asked these questions or watched this video, sorry, didn't give you props. It was a lot of stuff I had to say, and trying to figure out what people's usernames are, especially if I can't pronounce them. That's why I didn't do that. Next question. Which Dexter character would you like to be friends with and hang out with? Scott Reynolds said, I feel like Quinn would always be a good time to hang out with. You may not remember what happened the next morning, but the stories around the office would be legendary. And then for Clyde Phillips, for me, in Original Sin, it would be Tanya Martin. And then Scott Reynolds also says, or chimes in, she'd be fun to go on a gambling weekend with. So they didn't really explore the gambling angle of Tanya Martin. They talked about it briefly. So assuming that character, played by Sarah Michelle Gellar, comes back in Dexter Original Sin Season 2, maybe we'll get a lot more of the character of Tanya Martin, as my lips, of course, have already gotten really dry. Next question. What is Coach Logan's first name? Clyde Phillips? We never knew. We just called him Logan. That's kind of a cop-out. I thought his first name was I thought his first name was Logan, and I had the hunch that his last name was Dokes, because he had kind of the Dokes mannerisms, but that didn't end up coming to fruition, and it wouldn't surprise me if Coach Logan comes back and he's actually alive. Probably not. They did confirm that he was dead during the end of New Blood, but they can always resurrect Coach Logan too. Anyway, next question. And this is how the question was worded. What happens to Mr. Tinker Stinker after Dexter kills the nurse? Does he let it outside, find a new home, hope someone finds him before he starves? Clyde Phillips said Dexter took him to an animal shelter, and Scott Reynolds said Mr. Tinker was fine. So that was the cat of the nurse that was essentially drugging Harry in Dexter Original Sin, as well as Dexter New Blood. Or no, not Dexter New Blood, the original Dexter show. I don't remember if there was a cat in that. I don't remember. It's been actually, I just watched season 1 too, not too long ago, but can't remember everything. Next question. Who is the one character from the original series that you would have liked to explore more in Original Sin? This is an obvious answer, and only Clyde or Scott Reynolds answered this. We considered Dokes, but the timeline of where he was during that time, Special Ops, didn't allow us to do that. So they followed some continuity, but there's other things that didn't make any sense, where Dexter already knew the code starting out in Original Sin, when in fact it was Evelyn Vogel and Harry teaching, them together coming up with the code. Now, if Vogel does come in Original Sin, that completely screws things up. If they don't mention her, then they don't necessarily mess up the continuity, because they could just, say, yeah, Dexter Vogel already talked to Harry about the code, and now Dexter already knows it. I thought they would start with that, though, but Clyde Phillips is not a fan of stuff that he didn't do seasons 5 through 8. It's pretty obvious. Next question. Who is your favorite, or what is your favorite season of Dexter, and what is so special about that season? Clyde Phillips, season 4. What's special about it is that season is called Living the Dream. Dexter had a baby, a wife, and a home, and thought he could have it all and still be a serial killer. He befriended the Trinity killer, and we all know what happened in the end. It's our favorite season, and we believe it's most of the audience's favorite season. Scott Reynolds said, "What fun it was watching John Lithgow be this terrifying character up until Thanksgiving. I remember when his name came up as a possibility, and everyone only knew him as that funny guy and had forgotten about the terrifying creature he could be in movies like Blowout. That was a fun season." Next question. Love the show. My question is, what is a great serial killer movie or book that influenced Dexter in a way? And Clyde, any chance we will get a new Jane Candiati novel in the future? I might be saying that name wrong. I've never heard of it before. Clyde Phillips says, there is a new Jane Candiati novel in the works, and when I have time, right now I'm doing 2 shows, and that takes up my time. It's outlined but not written. So he says he has 2 shows right now. I think it's obvious we're getting a Dexter Original Sin Season 2, but if he only said 1 show, then that would make me a little bit scared that we're not going to get a Season 2 of Original Sin. They have to explore James Stokes on Original Sin. Scott Reynolds says it's hard to not feel the influence of things like Silence of the Lambs, Zodiac, and other true crime stories and movies. And then Clyde Phillips also adds, Silence of the Lambs, I wrote the first episode of the Trinity year with that in mind, an homage to the ending. Next question. How has your approach to writing the Dexter character changed over time? And what are your pre-writing rituals like? Do you have a process, or is it just like whenever inspiration strikes? Clyde Phillips says, writing is storytelling, and whenever I'm writing a script or novel, it's always the same. As far as I'm concerned, it's about the characters to keep the audience with us. But we in the writing room need to know the ending and back away from that to fill in all the episodes. Next question. What is your favorite Dexter/Deborah scene to write or watch? Scott Reynolds said, in Original Sin, the moment when Dexter ate the pot brownies, that scene was such a joy to break in the room. Any chance you get to see Dexter with his guard down is fun, and you really got a glimpse of at how much they care for each other. Also, the sadness with Deb that she rarely ever got that close with her brother, and her whole life she was wanting that closeness. It came together really well. It was so funny and heartbreaking too. It felt real. Clyde Phillips says they got to watch Parker Lewis. And then Clyde also says, in New Blood, when Deb was his conscience, their very first scene, which was magically shot by Marcos Diego, Jennifer Carpenter nailed it. Yeah, but she was too crazy as a ghost Deb. I don't know. That's my opinion. Next question. Who was your favorite big bad? Clyde Phillips, John Lithgow, Trinity, Scott Reynolds, the Ice Truck Killer, because he sort of launched everything and gave us a comparison against Dexter to make us love Dexter even more. And then Clyde says Dexter had to kill his brother. And next question. Do either of you read Reddit or have any of the Dexter Facebook groups to see what the fans think? Clyde Phillips is the only one that answered this question. I read most of them, weekly, not daily, but I catch up on the weekends. We care about our fans. Is that really true, Clyde Phillips? Because no offense, but New Blood sucked. There were moments on New Blood that were really good, but the execution and then the things that you said and the ending were absolutely terrible, in my opinion. But that's me. Not everybody shares that opinion. Next question, an interesting one. Where is Aster and Cody? What is the explanation for Harrison to be sent to foster care when he had 2 adult brothers? I don't think the person meant to say adult brothers because he had an adult brother and adult sister. And why, when never mentioned that, why, I don't know what this person was trying to put, and when never mentioned them. Scott Reynolds is the only person that answered this question, conveniently enough. Astor and Cody are living happy lives. The reason why Harrison didn't go to the other grandparents is because Hannah took him to Argentina and the system took over. Next question. The ending to New Blood felt fairly definitive, so why did you decide to bring back the character in a fairly big way? And this has already been talked about. Clyde Phillips. We decided to bring the character back because Michael C. Hall came to me and said, I want to keep going. Can you figure out how to unkill me? My first phone call was to Scott Reynolds, and he felt the same way. It was off Michael wanting to continue and figured out how to do it. And then Scott Reynolds said Michael missed Dexter, and so did we. Next question. Is it true that Arthur Mitchell, the Trinity Killer, is inspired by serial killer Dennis Rader, the BTK killer? Clyde Phillips. Partially. Scott Reynolds. The idea of a family man who seemed like the man next door, yeah, he was certainly part of it. Next question. Do you regret killing off Brian Moser so soon? He has become a fan favorite online while only having a recurring role in the first season and Original Sin, of course. Don't forget a couple of spots here and there, and he came back in season 6 as well. Scott Reynolds. We don't, because in Original Sin we were able to revisit him and he's still alive in Original Sin. And Clyde Phillips says, it's also our job to put ourselves in a corner and figure out how to get out of it. And killing Brian was the necessary to the storytelling for that season. Scott Reynolds also chimes in, people forget that Brian wanted to kill Deb. He gave Dexter the choice of killing Deb or running away with him, and Dexter wouldn't live with that. And then Clyde Phillips also chimes in, if he were capable of love, it was for Deb. Next question. How difficult was it to cast Dexter himself for Original Sin? Because Patrick Gibson nailed that part 100%. Clyde Phillips says, we had a great casting director, John Papsidera, and we scored the country and then the world. John found Patty Gibson for us. We thought he was in London, paid a visa attorney to get him here, but it turns out he was 2 miles away from us. He was our first choice. All the actors we got were. Did you guys expect Dexter to blow up so much in 2024 and get more viewers to watch it? And by the way, any plans for a Dexter movie in the future? They don't answer the Dexter movie part. Clyde Phillips says we were pleasantly surprised. It didn't surprise me. And Scott Reynolds says the franchise has been in the top 10 on Netflix. And then Scott Reynolds also says that's the fun part about Dexter. In 2005, when it first came out, people didn't expect it would last because there was nothing else like it out there. I don't think there'll ever be a Dexter movie. There's no point to do a Dexter movie. I thought Dexter would blow up, even though people are pissed about the 2 endings of Dexter thus far. It's just to show that people still want to watch. Next question. What is your thought on Harry as a father? Do you think he did the best he could, or was there more he could have done for Dexter as well as Brian? Clyde Phillips. We cover that in Original Sin, but not as much in the OG show. I think I'm satisfied with how Harry made his decisions in Original Sin. Arguably, Harry could have sent Dexter to a home as well, but the home destroyed Brian. The system destroyed Brian. Harry installing a code upon Dexter was crucial to the audience's relationship to Dexter. Scott Reynolds says where Harry made a mistake was sleeping with his informant, which was completely explored in Original Sin. Considering what he had to deal with and how far he went to save Dexter, he did the best he could. And we all love Dexter, so something went right in the midst of all the tragedy and darkness. Question for both of them, which they both are answering most of the questions anyway. What character, barring Dexter, has been your favorite to write for, and is there any changes you'd make to any other arcs? Love the Dexter shows. You guys do an amazing job with it. That person was very nice, not to criticize the ending of Dexter New Blood. Clyde Phillips, Dokes. Scott Reynolds, Dokes was a blast to write. Every scene between Dokes and Dexter was funny and scary and had so much power and tension. Scott Reynolds also says, I loved writing for Isaac Serco. He was such an interesting foe against Dexter. We couldn't wait to see what he would do with the words on the set, and was such a class act. He was just an interesting gangster. Also, Deb was also a blast to write, coming up with different ways to swear. Both young Deb in Original Sin and OG Deb, both actors delivered every single time. I would say Hannah McKay, but that's just me. Dokes is definitely the funnest character on Dexter, besides Dexter, in my opinion. Got a couple more questions here. Sorry for making you guys and gals listening to me ramble here. Was it always your plan to end season 4 like that? Because we did not see that ending coming. It was so dark and shocking to see a character like Rita to go like that. Scott Reynolds, it was. Clyde Phillips says it was our plan, but we didn't tell anyone other than the network. We didn't tell the crew who had to do all the prep work. We kept it such a secret that we had the executives come to my office to read the script. Scott Reynolds also adds, we knew in our bones it was the way to go. It was where Rita and Dexter's relationship. It couldn't go any further at that point. And then the last question here that is on here, which I'm going to go back to the Reddit page because I think, well, I'm not going to, never mind. I might have missed both the responses, but who's the one character you regret killing off too soon? Clyde Phillips says, we killed Miguel in the 11th episode of a 12-episode season, but we could have told more story in that last episode. So I don't know if I didn't copy and paste Scott Reynolds' comment, or he didn't just comment on that one. Because there's a couple that Clyde Phillips didn't answer as well. Like, he didn't chime in about the Aster and Cody question, maybe because he has plans for Aster and Cody, hopefully. We should see Aster and Cody at least one time for 5 seconds in Dexter Resurrection. Maybe not right away, but at least show them on the TV screen, especially if there's like a news bulletin, serial killer Dexter Morgan on the loose. You should see Aster and Cody's reaction, if anything. But that's just my opinion. And I'm going to answer that question as well. Who's one character you regret killing off too soon? If the character's really dead, Clyde Phillips, you dumbass. Well, I'm a dumbass too, but Hannah McKay, killing her off screen. Why? At least give her a proper death. So anyway, that was the Reddit. Ask Me Anything. They only answered about 22 or 23 questions out of a lot of them. I thought they were actually going to answer every question. I was hoping mine would get answered, but it didn't. I'd like to see what Clyde Phillips says about Hannah McKay. He doesn't typically address anything after Dexter season 4, so it doesn't, well, in between, he doesn't talk about seasons 5 through 8. And then, of course, he talks about New Blood and Original Sin. So let me know what your thoughts are in the comments section. If you're a Dexter fan, Dexter New Blood fan, Dexter Original Sin fan, Dexter Resurrection fan, and you want to help me out with the YouTube algorithm, please make sure that you Hulk smash the like button, share this video with a friend, put this video on any one of your social media platforms. Like I mentioned before, don't forget to sound off in the comment section with anything that you got for me, questions that you want to ask me. I'm sure the legendary Crazy Coffee Man and T. Parker Evans will be in the comment section as well. I'm okay with asking any Dexter questions. I'll answer any and every Dexter question that you have for me. And then last but certainly not least, don't forget to hit that sub button. You're watching the video anyway. Subscribe to the channel. Help me get over 100,000 subscribers. Join the team. Show your damn support and be a part of something special. And you never know what you're going to see on JDev TV.